I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for November 5th, 2014. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card, looks like this, and file it with the secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards are available in the lobby. Speakers should state their name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be directed to the commission, not the audience. While the Planning Commission is in session, all in attendance are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Could we have roll call, please?
Commissioners Nicklin, Lajowski.
Here.
Jagiello.
Here.
Zabilla.
Here.
Foster.
Here.
Chair Merck.
Here.
Nolan.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Jagiello, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item of business is public communications. Public communications is the time set aside during the Planning Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the Commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda under state law. Other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. And I believe Deborah Pendry has a presentation to make here. Okay.
Thank you. What I wanted to share during the public comment period was something interesting that we learned about an organization in Oregon called recode.org. And one of our newest members, recently graduating from college, came back from a conference from this organization and did a presentation for us on eco-sanitation, and the highlight was composting toilets. But what was interesting about this website and the mission of recode.org was legalizing sustainability. I loved it. And it brought to mind our challenges: straw bill, composting toilets, gray water systems. And what I passed around right now is a product called hempcrete. It's made from the inner fiber of the hemp plant, and the binder is a lime material. And it has extremely high R value. We're doing a film festival event on Sunday, November 9th, this Sunday. We're hosting a film called Bringing It Home, and it's about industrial hemp and trying to get it legalized again, back legalized in the United States. It's an incredibly valuable product. And the building material component was really fascinating. And one of our panelists, who's coming up from Los Angeles, has the first and only permitted home with hempcrete in it. And so she went through quite the process, an education process with her local officials, but they were open and she got it approved. So that's a step in the right direction. So I just wanted to share that and the idea of things that we tend to tense up about. We really do need to think about that concept of legalizing sustainability. So again, we're hosting Bringing It Home at 12:30 at the Art Center as part of the film festival, and all the details are at OhioValleyGreenCoalition.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Anybody else have a public comment? All right, we'll move on to our consent item, which is the consent calendar approved by a roll call vote in one motion. Should any member of the commission wish to discuss or disapprove an item, it must be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item. The only item we have is the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of October 15th, 2014. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion that we adopt the Planning Commission meeting minutes from October 15th, 2014.
Thank you. Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Lajowski.
Aye.
Jagiello.
Yes.
Zabilla.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Chair Merck.
Yes.
Nolan.
Yes.
All right. Next is disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. Commissioner Ledowski, you want to lead things off there? Matt, did the ex parte contact, sorry.
I've had no contact with anybody or anything on the agenda in regards to this evening.
Thank you.
I've had no contact with anyone either.
Okay.
I chatted with Mr. Young and Mr. Bush about the Pearl Street property years ago, when I think it was still just a dream in their head.
I'm familiar with the Pearl Street property, and years ago also had some conversations with the gentleman.
I'm familiar with Pearl Street. I have not visited the Blatz residence, but other than that, should be good.
I'm familiar with both properties and did not have any contact
Okay.
with any of the client or property owners.
Next is our Municipal Advisory Council Planning Commission Liaison Report, and I'm pleased to say that we have one from Commissioner Nolan. I don't see anybody here from the MAC.
All right, well, first I want to start by saying I ended up speaking with one of the MAC members by chance, not at the MAC meeting, but I think it was at Ojai Day. And they said to me, oh, is the Planning Commission still meeting regularly? And I said, yes, we meet twice a month. And I said, yeah, we've missed you, or some, a representative from the MAC Council. And they said, well, we haven't been receiving the notices that you're meeting. So I just wanted to mention that first. Just passing that message along. Terry Wright, he is supposed to be our rep presently. But I did attend the meeting, and interestingly enough, the last time I attended, the topic was very similar, and it was a representative from Caltrans and also the CHP officer. So some of it did relate to complete streets, so I thought that was interesting. Let me just turn my notes over here. They also did mention, I want to mention this, that the night sky ordinance is being considered by the county, and it looks like they've gotten approval from MAC, and they're going to move forward with that. So that was really exciting to see, seeing that the city of Ojai set the precedence. And I'm just looking to see if there was anything else that I missed. So the main topic was, once again, the Joint Highway 33 Improvement Committee and how that relates to the Municipal Advisory Council. And then I'm just going to just give you a couple brief items here. Sorry, I just grabbed this. I'm a little having to look at my notes from a couple weeks ago. But basically, the CHP officer, Officer Reed, reported that most of the complaints that they get in our area, meaning the Ojai Valley and adjacent areas, is for speeding. And the highest area for problems is Highway 33 due to motorcycle complaints and accidents. And then he also pointed out that they usually only have one officer for the valley, so it's kind of hard to patrol everything, especially the outlying areas like 33 and the upper Ojai. Let me see what else they've got there. Let's see. Oh, that they are also doing radar trailers up on 33 to help reduce the speeding. Then he also brought up the new 3-foot rule for bicycle riders, which was passed in September. And for those of you not familiar with it, basically a vehicle is ideally to allow a 3-foot buffer. Kathleen, fill in if I'm not stating this correctly. So you're supposed to allow a 3-foot buffer between the bicycle rider and a vehicle. And so the question came up from one of the members of the public there, and I think one of the MAC board members also. What do you do when there are bicycles riding side by side, or sometimes even 3 or 4 of them, and there's a double yellow line? And the officer said, well, technically you're not allowed to pass the double yellow line. You just have to wait and let them hopefully go into single file so you can go around. Because if you did that, you could technically still get a ticket, of course, because you're crossing the double yellow line. So there was a conversation about that. And ideally, the bicyclist is to ride as close as possible to the edge of the highway or the roadway. And it is illegal to ride 2 or more abreast. So for those of us that ride bikes, in addition to driving cars. And let's see what else. Oh, this was another interesting thing too. With bike lanes, you know, we're not experiencing this in Ojai, but in Ventura, they've got a lot of the new bike lanes at intersections. And so he shared that you can only merge into that bike lane if you're planning to turn right within 200 feet of the intersection. If you do that sooner than that, you technically could be cited for that. And there's no parking in a bike lane or no loading. And he also pointed out that the Ojai Valley is the largest unincorporated area in the county that they patrol. And pretty much, I think that was it. I mean, that was the bulk of the presentation. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for going to the meeting. All right, next item is an informational item. Deborah Pendry from the Ojai Valley Green Coalition is going to give us a report on the exterior lighting efforts.
Thank you again. So it occurred to me that we frequently hear and discuss update reports at the Ojai City Council meetings, but I wondered if Planning Commission regularly got the same type of updates, considering this is where a lot of the discussions and issues actually originate from. So thank you for allowing the Green Coalition time to update the Commission on exterior lighting activities since the City Council adopted a revised ordinance in August of 2013. Gail Topping and I will be sharing with you the information, but first we'd like to show a 3-minute video from Harmony, Florida.
The Milky Way and other stars at night have long been a source of inspiration, but unfortunately overlighting in many of our cities and suburbs have all but erased the stars from our night skies. But that's not the case here at Harmony, where a time exposure looking over Schoolhouse Road has picked up all the grandeur of the Milky Way at night.
Well, how is a view like that even possible in a suburban location where there are so many lights at night that just blot out the darkness? Well, it's all in the planning of street lights, in the planning of residential and commercial lighting. A little forethought goes a long way.
Harmony's street lights are referred to as full cutoff fixtures. The light bulb does not extend below the fixture. Light is directed to where you want it and not up into the sky and not into neighbors' windows. Here's the effect of an unshielded street light in a different Central Florida neighborhood. No wonder the blinds are closed tightly at night. Harmony's lighting practices are carried over to residential and commercial design. On porches and entries, lights are usually recessed into the ceiling, using the porch structure itself as part of the shield. The result is an adequately lit, non-glaring, and more welcoming entrance to the home. On other parts of the house, full cutoff fixtures are used, just like the streetlights. Or to get the feel of a more traditional coach light, the bulb is recessed up into the top of the housing. Or the fixture has an added shield that blocks direct view of the bulb, while still keeping that classic appearance. The Osceola School District even stepped up and put shields on the lights of the football field at Harmony High School.
Now, what about safety? Doesn't more lighting at night mean more safety? Not necessarily. Watch this.
It's not unusual to have unshielded lights by side doors. It helps you to see everything, right? But watch what happens if you shield this light. The glare is gone, and now you can see more of what's around you. Well-directed light is actually safer and most likely will be cheaper to operate. A dark night sky is a natural resource worthy of protection. In addition to just being able to marvel at the stars, we're learning that darkness is important to natural systems and even to human health. All of Harmony's efforts to manage outdoor lighting contribute to making evening strolls on the community sidewalks a real pleasure and make them one of folks' favorite places at Harmony.
So this is where we'd like to think the Ojai Valley is headed. It's a perfect example of the importance of political will, whether at the international or community level, is absolutely critical to legalizing and advancing sustainability. Bottom-up grassroots efforts are rarely enough and slow the process down. It really has to be a top-down, bottom-up effort, and we think the city's revised exterior lighting ordinance was just that. As a digression, we know the city does not own its streetlights, but what you might not be updated on are the efforts by the city and Edison to improve street lighting. City Manager Rob Clark and Public Works Director Greg Grant are in communication with Edison and working on mapping the city's streetlights. As we discovered early in our outreach efforts, for any streetlights over 10 years old, Edison will replace the fixture at no cost when it is already working on the pole. This is the majority of the streetlights within the city limits. Neighborhoods are also being studied for consideration of de-energizing poles where there's basically an overkill of lighting. As you know, the city funded the streetlight fixture upgrade at Andrew and Daly Street for demonstration purposes. That has that flat head, downward focus lighting. So that's helpful to be able to direct people to that, because we actually have gotten calls from folks saying, in fact, we had one gentleman who said, my son just started an astronomy class. We can't see the sky from our house. How do we get rid of this light? So we told him it was coming. Okay. So to recap a little, the revised ordinance adopted in August 2013 regulates the type of lighting fixtures that may be installed on new or remodeled buildings, and also establishes some operating restrictions for lights that have been permitted prior to the adoption of new requirements. Enforcement of the operating restrictions for existing lights was to be undertaken on a voluntary basis for 1 year. In August of this year, Mr. Clark requested to continue voluntary compliance with the new lighting ordinance and report back in 6 months. And this is mostly from his report to City Council. So regarding new construction, the city developed a handout that will be issued with approval plans as part of the plan check process describing the requirements for new fixtures, developed an informational letter to architects and contractors describing the current requirements, developed an information letter to realtors informing them of the requirements that have been in effect since 2004, developed administrative processes for planning, building, and engineering staff to assure that all entitlement conditions and code requirements are followed through in the plan check and inspection process. In the fall of 2013, all residential property owners and residents and occupants received a postcard advising them of new requirements. The city also ran several ads in the Ojai Valley News to publicize the requirement. We ran 2 articles ourselves. One of them was a before and after photo. It was really nice. Pat McPherson, one of our members and very active in the community. Once the ordinance passed, he was really, in fact, when Scott Cardell came from Arizona from the IDA, the International Dark Sky Association, he saw that presentation and he was really taken by it, and that's when he went home and changed out all his fixtures. We went to his house and saw it all and took photographs. It was great. We also distribute materials about the ordinance and benefits of it at community events, and keep in our own literature rack and the city literature rack stocked with informational brochure, which we have one here we'll pass to you might not have seen. Finally, working together, the city and the Green Coalition issued 5 dark sky certificates, which is being passed around also. And this was designed by Gail, so it's a one-of-a-kind special certificate. And this was given to businesses that were compliant with the ordinance. Unfortunately, by Mr. Clark's gauge, our combined efforts have not had much effect. The next step is to send letters to individuals and businesses observed to be out of compliance, seeking voluntary cooperation. The Green Coalition plans to distribute resource packets to businesses and has also offered to meet with business owners. We also plan to award more compliant business owners with a dark sky certificate in 2015. However, the big deal coming up is the city's agreement with the Green Coalition to get a minimum of 80 porch lights shielded over the course of a year at no cost to the owner. And this will be a demonstration project that we will be taking on behalf of the city. And we'll be kicking that effort off in the next month. Anyone in the public interested in assisting with this project can call 805-669-8445. That's to help actually do distribution. Or if you have a porch light that could stand to be shielded, then you could and you're within city limits, then you would be eligible to get one of these complimentary shields. So to support ongoing efforts, Gail and her husband George funded the purchase of examples and retrofits, and Gail was going to show you a couple of the examples that she's purchased and made up for people to see.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, can you come up to the microphone just so we can hear everything?
This is what you saw on the 3-minute video. It's a fully cut off, downward directed and shielded light. And now I've found out from Home Depot that they have this one under $50 that has a motion sensor to it. This one doesn't have it. And we're going to have an experiment on the 10th of November with this, with a HOA, Homeowners Association. They have 69 units, and they want to replace their porch lights. So this is one of the possibilities. This one is very familiar. It's a lantern, and it exists in the city all over, but with clear glass. And so you can see the bulb, and it's very bright and very glaring and very inappropriate, really, for the light ordinance. But if you frost the glass, and I had Arcade Glass do this, take them out and frost it, then it meets the requirement, and the person doesn't have to replace the fixtures that they have on their walls or house.
And that was about $40?
About $40.
To change the glass.
And then I'll pass this off. You can see it. This is the complimentary porch light, and this is the shielding for a bare bulb. Costs $7. So people don't have to really make changes. And the last is that Daley and Andrew has a new street light, and the before has a glare. It's the same amount of light on the ground, but the glare for the sky is enormous. And the one on the left, on my left, is the shielded one. It's called a flathead. It's shielded, and it has an LED. So it comes on a little later at night and shuts off earlier, so there's less energy used. Where this one came on very early when it was still quite light out and shuts off after daylight. So it's inefficient and ineffective. And the last one, and this is all on the shelf, Ace or Aquaflow or True Value, has this light. It's a battery-operated light, and it's also a sensor-operated motion sensor, and it cost $14. It's a porch light, and it's battery-operated, so you can put it anywhere. That's what we found.
Thank you, Gail.
So I just wanted to finish up with the fact of what we're also doing, considering that we are an Ojai Valley Green Coalition. And so in August, Gail and I, along with other community members, spoke to the value of an exterior lighting ordinance for the unincorporated areas of the valley to the Ojai Municipal Advisory Council. We requested the MAC recommend to Supervisor Bennett a Board of Supervisor agenda item, a dark sky lighting ordinance for the unincorporated Ojai Valley, which they voted to do. So on September 16th, Gail and I received the following email from Supervisor Bennett, which Kathy alluded to. The county dark sky ordinance is off and running. Today, the Board of Supervisors approved my request to have the preparation of an Ojai Valley dark sky ordinance added to the Planning Division's work plan. It'll be some time before the Planning Division starts work on this new project, but the first hurdle has been crossed. The board has authorized the project to move forward. So the Ojai Valley is a community. True, we have two governing bodies with somewhat different agendas and process, but we are bound by a valley topography, sharing the same watershed, same airshed, same sky. Thanks for listening.
So Deborah, I had a question for you. I've been wondering about streetlights lately, and it's never been clear to me. Edison owns the streetlights, and the city pays them to keep the lights running. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so through the de-energizing process, the city would actually be saving money. So that, I believe, is on the docket with Public Works. They're kind of analyzing which streets could do without some of the lighting, and also tagging those lights that are over 10 years. And so when Edison comes out to do repair work or touch them in some way anyways, they become eligible for a free upgrade. So just trying to always keep on top of that. And we actually told the county about it, and they didn't seem to be aware of it. So Steve Offerman at Supervisor Bennett's office, I mean, he jumped on it immediately, and they've actually moved forward with doing the work.
And I was also wondering about LED bulbs for streetlights. Does that make any sense at all? It seems like it would save a huge amount of energy. But
It would save a huge amount of energy. Right now, we're in that gray area of technology, in that actually blue LED lighting is not so dark sky friendly. So it's a catch-22, but as we improve the technology and go more into the white spectrum of LEDs, then it starts to make more sense. Definitely much more dark sky friendly. But as long as we're shielding and staying below that horizontal line, the type of bulb shouldn't be as critical, but LEDs are a little tricky right now, actually.
oh, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Pender? Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate all the work you're doing on that. All right, we're going to move on to our public hearing item. This is a conditional use permit, CUP 1407, and design review permit, DRP 1414, for a pool cabana at 1103 North Montgomery Street, assessor's parcel number 022-0012-430. General planned use designation of the property is medium-density residential. The zoning classification is residential special, RO. A categorical exemption has been prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. And could we hear from staff on this, please?
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, before you tonight is a design review permit and a conditional use permit to allow the construction and use of a pool cabana at 1103 North Montgomery. The site is approximately a half acre in size and is currently developed with an existing single-family two-story residence and an associated garage. The residence in this particular location is located a good distance away from Montgomery, something set back a little more than 150 feet. And located in front of the residence is the existing pool and surrounding concrete deck. The existing paved driveway extends from North Montgomery to the rear portion of the property, providing access to the two-car garage. So the applicant has submitted a package, and we worked with him to get a complete package, site plan, floor plan, elevations, to construct this 279 square foot pool cabana. It does have a living area, a full bathroom, and a closet, but as you'd note, it does not have a kitchen in it. And we've discussed this many times in front of the commission that, a guest house actually has a kind of a higher standard of review, design review, and a conditional use permit, even though it's kind of a less intense use than a secondary residential unit. So staff just mentions that because, this is one of the things that we're kind of a tangent thought process here. One of the reasons we're asking, for eventually to look at that ordinance. So just like to point out that this is one of those particular oddities where the construction of a 279 square foot pool cabana is requiring the applicant to not only have design review, but a conditional use permit. And just like to go through kind of a little backwards on the staff report, and just note that the staff report does indicate that this project is consistent with the general plan and the zoning consistency. There's a matrix in here, and it indicates that everything is being met. And so with that, we just like to say that really all that is at issue then is the design review. And as the staff report indicates, the applicant proposes to use 1x6 T&G pine spruce or Douglas fir siding, painted a crispy khaki to match the existing siding of the main dwelling unit. The 45-degree asphalt composition dimensional shingles proposed will match the roofing used for the main dwelling. Other trim, fascia, and windows are also proposed to be consistent with materials and coloring of the main dwelling. So with that, I think that we feel fairly confident that not only is the use appropriate, but the design of this rather modest cabana is in keeping with what he has there at the location with the existing residents. And just ask that then, in summary, seeing that everything in here is been met, and we have our resolution for adoption, we just ask that you adopt PC resolution number 14, unknown, approving the conditional use permit CUP 14-07 and the associated design review permit DRP 1414, allowing for the construction and use of a pool cabana defined as a guest house in the subject property, subject to the findings and conditions of approval. And that's it, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have any questions for staff? We have no questions. All right. Oh, Mac has a question.
I just have one quick question about in the conditions of approval or whatnot. I see there's, on page 4 of 5, I'm just wondering, how come there is all this legal stuff in here?
It's
I haven't seen it before on this.
Oh, it's always in all of them, I believe. You probably just not noticed it
Okay.
before because it's kind of always.
I'm off then.
Yeah, no, I believe it's in all of them. It's something that, the city attorney, that's why it's just noted under the heading legal requirements. Just things that usually all city attorneys put in conditions of approval. But we probably have never focused on it before because it's nothing, it changes, it's just always the same.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Kathleen, I'd like to talk about the ordinance itself. Is there anything we can do to change that? I think that ordinance, to go through this process for a guest house, for a CUP, seems to be out of balance with.
Well, I guess what I would suggest then, and the city manager and I have talked about this regarding a number of different situations where, when a commission or a board wants to do some type of work activity that's not in the existing work program. And I've been instructed that you can go ahead and just present an item up to city council. So if you'd like me to draft something up and then you guys review it, or you just want us to do that, I'd be more than happy to.
I would like that. Do we make a motion for that?
Yeah.
Yes, because that really.
I think we just have to
Yeah, but
ask politely. I don't think we need a motion or anything, do we?
Well, what exactly are you, what are you
Well,
asking for?
Well, I'm asking, I don't believe a conditional use permit is required for a guest house. There should be this.
So if I might suggest, if I may, I think what you would say, you would be saying is you'd say we would like after completion of the compliance program, we'd like the Planning Commission to work on the secondary residential ordinance as it is and the guest house ordinance, because they're kind of companion pieces, I believe. And that to be incorporated into the work program that the city manager manages. I mean, the city council establishes the priorities, and then the city manager does the day-to-day, man-hour management. So you would just be asking for them to direct staff to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would come back, and then I would come back with the issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Could we hear from the owner on this? Who happens to be our city council liaison?
My applicant ad is on now. I really don't have anything else to say other than the fact that I didn't realize that a CUP was going to be required either until I began looking at it. And it does seem as though when you state law prohibits you requiring a CUP for a second dwelling unit, that a pool cabana, which this is being classified as a guest house, would require one. It didn't seem like it made a lot of sense to me either, but it's on the books that way. That's why we did a full design review and a material board and everything else for it. So I really don't have anything else to say. It's gonna be in fitting. I have a kind of a trellis down there that this is gonna be replacing, and it's gonna be the same size as what the trellis is. And the angle of the slope on the top of it is similar to the slope that's on the house already, so it should match it really well. I want it to look like it's been there right from the beginning. Any questions of me?
Questions?
No? Okay,
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this matter? I will close the public hearing. All right. Do we have any discussion?
I'll make a motion
I would love that.
that we adopt PC Resolution number 14.
You don't have to put a number in, just say.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
over that.
Approving a conditional use permit CUP 14-07 and associated design permit DRP 14-14, allowing for the construction and use of a pool cabana defined as a guest house on the subject property, subject to the findings and conditions of approval.
I will make a second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Yagowski.
Aye.
Jagielo.
Yes.
Isabella.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Chair Merk.
Yes.
Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. Blatz, I think you might have set a record there for fastest approval. All right. We will move on then to this is a discussion item, a concept review, CR 1404 for the remodel in addition to an existing single-family residence on site and the proposal to construct 6 additional single-story residences for the property located at 601 Pearl Street. And could we hear from staff on this, please?
Yes, sir. As you said, this is a concept review, so I'll try to make my report short and let the applicant come up and give his presentation. But the subject site is approximately an acre, just shy of acre, 39,935 square feet. It's at the intersection of Pearl Street and Bald. And it currently has an existing single-story, single-family residence and an attached 2-car garage there. There are other descriptions of the property include that it is south of and adjacent to the subject site to the Ojai Valley Trail. And the surrounding properties to northeast and west are built with single-story, single-family residence, with the exception of the property just north of Pearl Street Extension, which is vacant. There has been some history on this site. There have been 2 prior concept reviews that went before Planning Commission, so some of you might remember that. One was in 2008, and the other one was in 2010. The first concept review in 2008 proposed a division of the property into 6 detached condominium units, and the latter concept review proposed the 2-parcel property with the divisions of airspace into 9 detached condominiums. So we've given you those minutes, but I believe that they came via email kind of after the fact, so my apologies for that. Historically, this is the site of the Dorothy and Wallace Dunning residence and the olive mill built in 1901, and I believe that's the property that's still going to be remain or is remaining there right currently. This property was included in a historic resource screening survey that was performed by the City of Ojai by the San Bonaventura Research Associates in March of 2011. The purpose of the survey was to create a database for the City of Ojai for use in identifying the need for the preparation of a Phase 1 historic resource report in connection with the proposed alteration or demolition of potentially historic properties. The survey resulted in a categorization of properties into level categories as defined need for historic resources survey, and one was requiring a Phase 1, Category 2 required no Phase 1 report, and Category 3 requiring a historic resource letter report. This project site was identified as one of those 90 properties requiring a Phase 1 report. So I believe that that was done. You guys did a report on that. So in this staff report, we've given you sort of the basic tools to look at this project. I mean, again, it's a concept, so it's a little bit more free-form dialogue type process here. But we've indicated the general plan, the zoning, the context of how you should look at the design review of it. You've also been provided a matrix that talks about the basic allowances and then the PUD. And I'm available if you need me to explain the PD process, but basically, you know, the PD is, you can waiver things as you see it fits the design of the project. I mean, it is, PDs are design specific. So as you see that you're creating a better design or allowing creative design, then you can soften or loosen up the setbacks and things of that nature. So, and it's very clear in here that it says standards to be determined by the decision-making body through the plan development process. So when we get into this kind of free-form plan development process, it's really important you give them clear direction because, you know, we're outside the black and white, you know, 5 and 12, 20 and 25. So now they really need your help in making sure that what they're doing really kind of meets what you're wanting it to meet because, you know, there aren't fixed set guidelines for them to adhere to. And it's a really wonderful process that affords every city the ability to get to allow creative design where maybe the shape of the property or some other facet or just the kind of project they want to put down there really needs some assistance in the design. So it's a good process. So with that, we're just, you know, we want to point out that I guess they are going to subdivide into 2 parcels. You see on the map that's in there, there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. They can maybe explain a little bit more about that and the reasoning behind that, why. So it says 3 of the new dwelling units we built in the first phase and the remainder were built in the second phase. And I know there's been some issues give and take along the way about either keeping the existing residence or not keeping it. So I've met with them a couple of different times also. But I think now that they've really come a little bit more defined in what they want to do on the process. And with that, I guess I would just open it up and ask you that that you have the applicant give their presentation. I'm here to answer any processing questions if there are any of those that come up.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff?
I would just like a little clarification on how does a property qualify for the plan development permit process? Was it within, because it was in a VMU zone?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think, sure, is there a size requirement for PD? I don't know, I'd have to look that up for you, but it is this particular property, that's how VMU, when they changed the VMU standards, back with the last housing element, I think is when City of Ojai did it. It was, they made, they kind of changed, some of them made them larger, but they also created this process whereby, you know, if you wanted something different and you needed something different, because VMU is obviously, you know, village mixed use, right? So it's intended to be kind of a creative zone district that allows kind of a different product than a standard, either I'm commercial or I'm residential.
Right.
So they allowed them to go through the PD process.
Okay.
Is village mixed use the only one that can do that?
I don't think so. No, I think that I mean, I'd be happy to look up the standards for others, but it really is a process. I believe, and I'd have to look, and I apologize for not knowing it off the top of my head, but I think there's like a size limitation. But the VMU, VMU was specifically done this second time around where it was altered to encourage people to do that. So I think rather than it's kind of how we've talked many times about a case-by-case basis,
Right.
or you guys utilizing your discretion. That's really what the plan development allows somebody to do. It allows the commission to say, hey, I really think it's a better design if you turn the garage this way, but if you turn the garage that way, then it has to go into the rear yard setback. I mean, it's really allowing that. And I think by not trying to craft a VMU to fit every situation, because the land uses would differ, you know, and some VMU is small and some is long and narrow. They're kind of a little different shaped that my experience been here. I think there was just a creative way of allowing them to go through that process and the commission to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Could we hear from the applicant?
Well, I'm Mark Shelnut, 35A Kunkel Street in beautiful downtown Oakview. I'm the architect for this project. My packet I got has the colors are pretty bad, so I got, this is different than what you have. The colors are going to come around. Those still don't really reflect what we're looking at. We've been working on this site for quite a while, and we came around to essentially reusing the existing house that's there and adding the 6 additional units to that. We were thinking we wanted a small scale unit, not a really expensive house that only richer people could afford. So we came about with this 2-bedroom, 2-bath, more of a bungalow craftsman style home where a small family or retired people could live directly adjacent to the bike path, the tennis center. So each one of these, like I said, we reused the existing house and remodeled it so it looked like the new houses. There's no any historic significance remaining in the existing house, and it does actually have a basement. It's not really a single story. It classifies as single story, but there is a basement underneath. Each one of the new units has a, like I said, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they have a wraparound porch to get more community within the development. And each one is basically the same. There are flip-flops, different material change colors. The garage doors switch from the in to the side. But as you can see, it pretty much takes up the entire lot just to get them on there. We are no longer trying to get a lot split. We're going to do it all as one project, although it may be done as in phases if there's an allotment issue we have to deal with. So right now, we're just here for more of us input on your feeling of the size and scope and how everything works. On one of the pay sheets, there is a elevation of what Pearl Street would look like with all the units. And those are all to scale, so you can see that it's not really overpowering from the neighborhood. It's all pretty small scale. So I'm just available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
I'm glad to hear you're not doing the phasing thing, because I found that really confusing. So we're just going to treat this as one piece of property.
One piece of
basically.
property, yes.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question for you, Mark. Since there's a couple of us that were here back in the day, in your opinion, what are the changes that you've incorporated in this plan that differ from where we last left it? I see a lot of similarities, but there's definitely changes going on here.
Right.
What were you guys thinking?
Well, we were taking out the original house before,
Mm-hmm.
and then we previously had 9 units, so we decided cost-wise to try to save money on the entire project, just to use what was there. So essentially, the entire footprint of the existing house is used. We removed the single-car garage because we need the driveway to go through, and then added the 2-car on the front side. So that's a major portion. We changed the overall design of the other units is very similar to what we had. We just made the porches a little different size, added another bathroom to them, and
Okay.
I guess it really depends on which one you've seen. They say it's been since 2008, so we've had like 17 different schemes.
The units themselves are pretty much the same size, right? Or
They're slightly larger.
in
before
this
they
plan,
were-
they're slightly larger?
Yeah, they're about a little over 1,000 square feet before. Now they're closer to 1,200.
Okay. All right. Great.
I have a question. I actually was here for the 2010 presentation, and if I remember correctly, the layout, of course, was different, the layout of the houses. And it was a little more centralized and more community-oriented.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, I don't see that on this round, and I'm wondering why the change in.
I don't recall which one you really looked at. It could be just that saving that central house.
Okay.
It's fine when it was built in the center of the lot, but if you're actually trying to develop a house in the center of the lot, it's kind of a detriment.
Right.
So that might have some where it's not quite so communal. It does have 2 sort of communal areas, but they're not like one giant kind of.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, I know we looked at a design review for the Paradise artist folks had a concept review in town by Joe's Quick Stop, you know, that area. And they were going after, correct me if I'm wrong, the potential of having an affordable unit in there, because you get a, Kathleen, like a density bonus, I think, is that right?
Yeah, you can get, you can get more units, you get additional units if you provide some kind of affordable component, and I forget exactly the percentage, is it 25%?
Over 9?
Yeah, it was some,
Isn't it like over 9 units? No, you have to have
Yeah.
a certain amount.
so I don't think we've talked about that, have we?
No.
You having an affordable component?
Is that something you've considered on here?
Well, you see the site, it's pretty, what we were originally looking for is something where each person has their own little private yard. So in order to do that, we'd have to start getting them a lot closer, maybe even attach them, and we're trying not to attach them. Given the scale of the units, affordable is what you really mean by affordable, what that number is.
Well, I guess maybe, I have read through the past 2 times you've come before the commission, but this is the first time that I've seen the project, so could you just kind of maybe explain kind of the philosophy behind it? You know, like kind of we have the blueprints in the staff report, but kind of what is the philosophy behind the project?
Well, it's kind of in a corridor where they don't really have to drive. It's close enough to downtown. It's right next to the bike path. It's right next to the rec center. So we were trying to get something smaller that if you have some retired people, not necessarily married, but like some elderly gentlemen or ladies that just want a place to live and they don't want a really giant house. They just need a place that's comfortable and they have a nice little outdoor space. They can keep their little dog out there. That's kind of what we're looking at.
So I'm just going to ask a question, kind of unusual. Is it all right if I ask them a question?
Jump right in.
Okay, so you said you're not going to subdivide, so the people will buy, each person will have ownership of their unit how?
Yeah, that's kind of my question. Is it like an airspace condo, or how does that work?
I think that's what Mac is trying to, I mean, if I can be so bold, I think what he was trying to get at is, how does if they're all on one common lot, I guess Craig, you mean, that's where we're a little confused.
Yeah, come on up, Craig. Just introduce yourself.
Good
there.
evening. My name's Craig Young, and I live at Oak Knoll Drive in Oakview. Anyway, I think what the question as far as the phasing was when Mark was talking about, we originally wanted to take to subdivide the lot into 2 parcels and then do, 4 units and then do the other 3 units. And that's the part that we're going to not do now. We still are going to do the subdivision and the tentative map for
So I think maybe.
the overlay would be on top of that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help facilitate a little conversation here. So I think that that you're not showing each parcel line here or proposed parcel line. So each one of these would have,
They'd have their own yard area, and
so if they were just to kind of come here, they all have their own maps open. So if they were coming down the fence line, where it says 6-foot high foot fence and down here, and then come like halfway out to the drive, that's going to be this person's parcel, and then the next one's going to go down to between the 2 fence lines.
he has the parcels actually delineated with the dashed line.
Is that the double dash line?
Yeah, the double dash
Where it says
line.
wood fence?
That's what I'm
Yes.
talking about, where it says wood fence.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's going to be the area that will be
And would it
inclusive.
come out, would these on Phase 2 come out here to where it says the phase line, right here?
Well, no, when we originally discussed this, when I was saying is that, we were going to do 2 phases. We were going to split the original parcel in half.
Oh, I'm fine, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So, but there's not going to be, when you say phasing.
Could you just show me, so I'm just trying to help them, so with the parcels, eventually you're gonna have 7 parcels.
7 parcels.
I know, okay. So they're all going to absorb part of the common areas together. You're not going to have an 8th parcel that's just the common areas, correct?
I
The
got what you're
driveways?
saying now, yeah.
Okay, you
No,
got me now.
there
Okay,
is
thank you.
there is gonna be a common area.
Parcel.
And, yes.
So you'll have 8 parcels, 7 of them for sale. You'll have an 8th one that will have all, are we following me now? So there'll be an 8th one that's just the driveways and access and common areas. They'll have a maintenance agreement.
CCNRs, yes.
That will then talk about how everyone pitches into that eighth lot. And so what happens, if you can envision that, it's like, what they're saying here is that each one of these is the new homes will be smaller, but by keeping the existing bigger home, or it's kind of spread out more, it kind of eats up a lot of the area. And I think that's why they're saying the design is changed by keeping that bigger one. Because if you have to envision this cut up to where they're selling these, each one of these. Am I saying this correctly then?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I'm a person interested in buying one of these things, I'm actually going to buy a lot with a house on it, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Will there be any HOAs?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's required by the DRE. So the CCNRs and the fees.
Well, if you're, are you thinking, you're not doing airspace, are you, condos? You're actually doing in fee titled land,
Yeah,
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, they're, it's considered townhomes.
Oh, you're doing townhomes? Okay, they're considered townhomes, not single family?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of the issue. The issue that we've had discussed with him previously was, if you did a condo, I think that was part of the original one, if you read the description in here with the different concept plans that were talked about when you're doing airspace. And that was done in 2008, division into condominium units. Discussions that we've had was that that's very expensive at this kind of scope with only 7 units because, the Department of Real Estate has a lot of hurdles you have to come over, including, CCNRs and homeowners associations and things like that. They get into a lot of money. And so I think the idea was to go more in fee title, own your land. I think you guys talked to you might want to explain that to him, that you actually talked to someone about the cost involved and.
Yeah, we've been in touch with Jensen and that they were considering using them, the civil engineers.
Does, I know with condominiums, I think if you go over 4 units, the state gets involved, right?
Yes.
Probably
You fall within the Subdivision Map Act.
And so, because we're under a planned development permit, does that give you a little less onerous? Yeah, I mean, you can avoid that aspect of it with the state?
No, we will not be able to avoid that.
Okay.
We'll still be going through the Subdivision Map Act.
Okay, and that's what that's
Yeah.
about, the
Yeah.
Subdivision Map Act?
Yeah.
Right, but if he, to so clearly understand that these lots, when they are proposed for division, will be smaller than the city's normal minimums. Because, obviously, you can just look at this and see. So, so with that, there'll be, and not each lot does, without having access to those common access areas or the common areas, driveways, don't really have access to a street. Nor would they be able to if you didn't allow them to do this with this creative design. So they are subject because obviously a parcel map is 4 or less, 5 or more is a tentative map, tentative track map, that's what he's explaining to you. And so regardless, if you were to have 2 lots there and then subdivide those, the map act kind of still pushes you. There's rules and regulations that once you're, you can't 4x4 is what they call it. So I think that's kind of where he said he talked to his engineer, and he's definitely in the track map state. But I think so. That kind of led to this design. And again, like we've talked before during some of our meetings, is that it's kind of a 6 of one, half a dozen another as far as small lots. And then what kind of mechanism allows that group of people to have maintenance and funding for the common drives and that type of thing, and what really works and what's practical with the number of units. I think we had the same discussion when Paradise came. you know, when you have a small group of numbers in some kind of common, you know, ownership, it's always difficult.
Well, the way it was explained to us at Jensen too is that, you know, actually the lot, there's an overlay, there's a parcel, the main parcel, and then the overlay on that, on the top of that, lays over the top of that, that's the actual condominiumization, I guess it'd be, that shows the land, the outline of the land and things like that, so.
So then I'm a little confused too. Are you still talking about doing condominium or actual part?
Townhome.
Okay.
It's classified as a townhome style.
Okay, so I just have to clarify this. So a townhome, you can still be condominium, you can still just be doing airspace, right? But you're doing sort of more, well.
It's airspace.
Actually, the land is not.
Huh?
Townhome is different than a condo.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely different. But you can still not own the land underneath it with a townhome. So I'm just a little confused. Are you doing townhome and you're owning, are they owning to the drip line? Is that, because I think these folks need to know that to give you good feedback.
Yes, they're going to own to the dash lines.
Oh, so they're going
The
to own
space.
land too?
The land, yes.
Okay. So we'll basically be splitting this up into little tiny lots for,
Yeah, yes.
yeah. And then if you're a homeowner, you're going to actually buy a piece of land that has a
Yes.
house on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess the hybrid nature of it is that the HOA and the CCNRs are going to define the communal land area.
Common areas, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question about that, just out of curiosity. So the existing residence is surrounded by all the common areas?
Well, yes, well, the existing main home is going to have its area, and there's going to be I don't know if you've got that done here, Mark, or not, or if you show that, but.
There's a patio in the back, is their main
Yeah.
area.
But that particular area, I don't know if we've gotten that far, like I said, with Jensen, to actually identify the property that surrounds the main home now as it sits. So, but it will own its property, you know, some property, and I don't see it here on here yet, but.
I think it would be helpful to have an overlay on this to show this a little bit better.
Yeah, that was going to, from the conceptual review, that's what our next step was, to go to get the tentative map and the overlay and show that. And, you know, but that's going to be an expensive undertaking. And so we wanted to kind of make sure we were on the right track before we headed down that road. So.
Are the setbacks on the perimeter meeting the requirements of that particular zone it's in? Like I see 10-foot setback on the
believe
rear,
so.
on the rear yard setback. Are any of those in compliance at all?
They need to have, 20 feet in the front, and sides are 10 feet. It says required 6, whatever that means. So I guess 10% of the lot width. And then the rear would be 25% of the lot depth, or 25 feet maximum. So no. I don't believe so.
Okay.
But it's our prerogative as a PDP
Right, to change
waive
that.
that.
I just was curious.
Correct.
So, so you guys are planning on a two-phase approach to this development?
Actually, you know, originally, when we were talking about the two-phase, we were going to request that we could divide this parcel, the main parcel, into 2 parcels,
Right.
and then build 4, and then build 3, and, 4 and then 3. Remodel the main house, add 3 houses, and then do the 3 on the balance. But we want to just go forward with the whole thing.
Oh, the
Yeah,
entire
we-
project?
We don't want to do the, we don't want to do
this phase line that's on the plan
Yes.
then?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
I have a question just on reviewing. I want to go back to the 2008 meeting. Commissioner Foster actually brought up an interesting point, as you oftentimes do, is it says he wondered where the kids play. And I see in here, And I also, in the 2010 notes too, I see this like kind of tendency or direction that the commission was going. They keep kind of emphasizing the more community-oriented and that kind of design. Do you think that you've achieved it in this incarnation?
Yeah, on the 2008 design, it was more of a semicircular design, and they were two-story homes, if I remember right, weren't they?
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure they were two-story homes, and we had kind of a circle driveway and they faced each other.
It was pretty
And it was just
conventional approach.
yeah, and that wasn't really well received. The size, they were 2,500 square feet and two-story, and maybe a little overwhelming for the site. And so, we did, at that time, we didn't have any common areas or anything for, that we didn't address any of that. And here, we do have it shown. We have a couple areas here. And then, of course, you know, they have their backyards and their front yards, and so.
Go ahead.
Well, one other note, I also saw a lot of discussion back and forth about the two-car garage issue, like whether it looks that maybe at one incarnation you took it off and you put it back, or what's?
It was suggested by one of the members that they would like us to apply for a variance for a single-car garage and kind of go that way, and maybe mix it up where we had some single-car parking or single-car garages and double-car. But that was something we really weren't interested in, for the fact that I think we believe that when we go to sell them, that all the two-car garages would be swiped up, and then people need the garages, and you know, it's usually a two working family, and they have two cars, and they want to park two cars in there, and it just didn't seem to behoove the project, in our opinion. So
I think, as I think back on that, we were, the reason for we were trying to be less auto-centric, and my opinion hasn't changed on that. And by doing that, it freed up square footage, so we could develop a more communal atmosphere here. And I really like this. There's a lot I like about this plan. I think the architectural, stylistically, you still have incorporated a lot of our suggestions. You got the porch, raised porch. There's a lot of that going on. But I think what I'm seeing here, we're sacrificing, again, where do the kids play? I know you got this common area here, but I think it's important to understand the social interaction that takes place in a development like this, and how does that work, whether they be old or young? There's got to be some, and I see you have the common area in front, and maybe that's it. But I think it really needs to, whatever you're going to do there, it really needs to be developed and addressed, an area where kids can safely, get to and interact, and as well as the adults for that matter. So, on the plan, it looks like it could just be a lawn and it's done. But I think that's real important to me, that aspect is incorporated. And I see the challenge, because with the existing residents being right in the middle, that would be the logical place to kind of put this thing.
Right.
But there's a challenge involved here, but that's an important aspect.
I'm going to pipe in along with what Stephen was saying. I think, architecturally, I like the direction you're going in. But when I do look at this plan, I think the first thing you see when you drive in is the garage. And it gets back to that autocentric focus. And I do like that you added the front porches and you've listened to us, but the front porches don't necessarily relate to the neighbors at all. And part of the reason for having the front porch is to, once again, have that community aspect. I don't know if you, and I understand the challenge of like, how do you make it work? I get that. So I don't know if you explored with the garages being towards the back and facing more on the property line, so there'd be more exchange with communication with, you know, each individual unit and then the homeowners? If that
I
was
think it-
possible?
Well, excuse me. We actually investigated that as one of, like I said, we've done
Yeah.
17 different iterations.
believe it.
We had one that had a perimeter road around the outside and tried
Right.
to do a similar to
Mhm.
that. And essentially what happens is the road takes up more of the lot than this
Mhm.
scheme actually does. It's, like I said, it's auto-centric, but, I mean, the city requires 2 cars, and everybody wants 2-car parking, and, like I said, we've investigated that, and if you put it to the outside, it pushes all the houses close together, then there's no space between them when they're all together, so this direction actually gave us the most. And like I said, the house is kind of in a bad position, but I think we might be able to try to get a little bit more play area if I look at it a little bit more.
Mhm. And then one other question too, and I remember this was something we discussed in 2010, and it had to do with sustainable practices or methods and materials that you might use. I noticed you have interlocking pavers, and I'm wondering if you know if that's going to be permeable on a permeable surface so that you're actually capturing the water, storm water, keeping it on site.
That was the plan.
Okay, good. And then also, I applaud you on your use of the native sycamore, but we didn't get any idea about the rest of the plant material. I think you've said native grasses.
Yeah, we haven't got
You haven't
that
got that
far
far.
as
Okay,
far
that's
as the
okay.
landscape plan
Okay.
but if you have suggestions or, you know, specific species, or maybe we could get a list of those and try to incorporate those and.
Mhm. Well, it looks like you're
So-
kind of heading in the right direction. I would definitely push climate appropriate, and it looks like you're going in that direction. I think those are my questions for the moment. Thank you.
Can you explain to me the undeveloped area and how that relates to what you're going to do in the future with that?
Oh, the undeveloped area is currently an easement, and it's going to be for the future extension of Pearl Street.
Yeah, so that's actually
On-
something the
on
city
to-
wants to put in.
yeah.
there.
City, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioners have any feedback as far as, because this is a planned unit development, the setbacks and on the side and so on? As far as I'm concerned, it looks pretty good. I mean, you're keeping the scale really low, and I don't see any neighbors objecting to it. I don't see where they would have a problem with it.
As far as the garage with Steve was talking about here, it's kind of almost a trade-off, I think, between having a 2-car garage and a larger common area for, you know, playing and stuff like that. And I think we understand that, but it's almost like you know, we feel like if we went to a single-car garage on half of them or whatever, it would be, you know, kind of a not a real advantageous selling item for having a single-car garage. But the other thing is it seems like if they had a single-car garage only, then, you know, how people just start packing things in their garage in their cars or start parking outside of the garage, and they may still do that at the 2-car. But at least it gives them you know, and if it was a larger piece and we had the undeveloped area there to work with too, we could spread it out and stuff, but trying to work with the city, get the extension for Pearl Street, get the common areas for, you know, playgrounds and you know, play areas, and you know, maintain a 2-car garage, which we think is real important. Private backyards, which is still, I think, is important. It's just kind of a mix. So, like I said, we've kind of beat Mark over,
Right.
you know, going different areas and designs and whatnot, trying to come up with the thing.
Sure.
But
Well, what I like, a major point for me on this is the size of these units. I think,
Yeah.
I really think you're thinking progressively. I think that's what's going to allow people, you know, to make it somewhat affordable to live in Ojai. when you just by diminishing the overall square footage, we're talking about 1,100 to 1,200 square foot units. So I think that's awesome. It kind of gives you this cottage feel, this, bungalow feel you're referring to. I'm wondering, maybe, I'm just brainstorming with you, but there may be someone that only wants one car garage. Maybe there's a way to combine, combine two car garages into a 3-car garage that could be where one unit could utilize one of the bays because they don't want necessarily a 2-car garage, and kind of hybrid the idea together. Just an idea, to float an idea there, because you're talking, a couple hundred square feet every time you do that.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to keep them detached. That's
Yeah.
important for us, and to do that becomes, someone has a garage that's attached to someone else's garage, which brings up other potential problems down the road.
You can't have common walls or.
Well, you can, but the idea behind it would be that you have your own house on your own little parcel, and we've had some pretty positive feedback from clients and about selling their larger house on Foothill Road and saying, gosh, that'd be great. We could go down and downsize and go to play tennis at the racket club. And so, taking all those in consideration, all the comments over the past couple of years, came up with this.
Can
I would say that.
Can I just try to interject a little bit here? So how do you feel about doing a 1-car garage with an multi-use pad? I think we talked about that earlier on some of these projects where it would be maybe like grass, whatever they call the
grass creek.
Yeah. So it would eliminate the issue that he says is someone just completely using their garage for storage. I mean, the issue, if you look at this site plan, it has no driveway. So car-centric, we've already eliminated the individual driveway. So what if they did 1-car garages and had an open space for that second car that then could also be patio or something? I mean, is there something like that you think is more creative? I'm just concerned about the fact if you remove 2-car garages, I think that what they're saying, there's no drive.
You still need a place to
There's
park
no
the
driveway.
Yeah.
There's no driveway. So
Yeah.
almost every family in California has, I'm a single individual and I have 2 cars, so I don't know. I'm just worried, that you may make it difficult for people, as he says, to actually function in that
For
area.
sure, I think it's preferable to have 2 cars.
Well, I don't think it has to
I'm
be a
just
garage,
trying
yeah.
I understand what Steve's.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
trying to
understand the
create
idea
this,
about the less auto.
more of a sense of community.
Yeah.
I
with
agree.
this instead of individual track where,
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
it
isolating
doesn't,
yourself. There's a little disconnect going on here, right?
I
From
think there
one place
is.
to the other.
And I think it doesn't have to be 2 enclosed parking spaces. You could have a patio structure, or like a carport that also doubles as a, you could make something that functions somehow other way if you gave them that direction, if that's what you wanted to do. Also, I was going to ask on the house here, the existing house that I'm a little confused. What is it now that you're leaving of the existing house, and what is it that you're demoing?
The entire footprint of the house is going to be existing, except for the single-car garage that's on the, I guess it would be the east side.
So on your
We're
elevation.
going to remove that, and we're going to add a garage to it on the, would be the west side.
Yeah.
Well, basically northwest corner.
Okay. And is that?
And it'll actually look, we've kept the driving in, on the side, so the part that's facing the street is really going to look like the house. So it's not, we've tried to keep the garage door entries not facing the street.
Is the porch and the stairs going down to what you're calling common area? Is that existing right now?
Well, there won't be a porch. Yeah, there's a small porch on there now, but there'll be a new porch built because we want to try to keep it consistent in the architecture of the 6 units that we're adding, if that's
So I
answers your
would
question.
ask that the commissioners look at that, because if you're talking about the common area, the concerns that I would have as staff is that common area needs to read to all of the owners, it's common area, not read that it belongs to a particular house. And I'm concerned that maybe you should give them some feedback about those stairs coming down and the fact that that kind of makes that feel like that is front yard area for that one specific house and not truly common area. So if you're gonna have concerns about that, I'd like you to address that to them now, like, is there a way to turn it around so that this and what can we do so everybody in this area feels like it's common, and that person who buys that house in the middle doesn't feel ownership of it because, well, that's where I walk up to my front door. That's what I'm concerned about.
That's why I asked that question before, was about the common area. I mean, I think that would be, I don't know, for me, I think that these other, the interlocking paver area is going to function as a common area. People are going to hang out there, and really what people want first and foremost is they want privacy, and then they want to be able to find their communal space. And I think you've actually struck a really nice balance here between the privacy and the communal areas. However, I think that's why I asked about how the common areas are working with this existing structure, because that's where I was getting at too, is it seems like this person's sort of their own little island, and how is it delineated?
That probably needs to be, further looked at. There's 4 common areas. It was basically after we laid out everything on the site plan, you get what the feedback and try to incorporate it, then you get your areas that are left over.
What's left, yeah.
And then that's how we've kind of looked at it. So we've had these areas, this area, and that, but it hasn't been really scrutinized or identified. I mean, in those areas, obviously, I think that there's probably room for improvement.
Would they be fenced off?
No, I don't
like
think
that?
they'd be
Okay.
fenced off. I think they'd be open, and there could be benches, L benches. They could
I think
be
it's,
monoliths, concrete benches. Something rock benches.
So I'm thinking if you could reorient to the best that you can on all the units so that the porches face into, let's say, I'm calling it the drive or the interlocking paver common area. I think, or even if it wrapped, so there was part of it would be more towards the interior, but part of it more towards the public space. I think that would give it a little more community, but at the same time giving you that privacy. So for instance, the parcel on the north, that would be the northeast one, that would be facing Pearl Street, the front porch, you walk in from the common area, the interlocking pavers, and then it wraps around. So there's that community interface, but then there's also the privacy side. I realize you can't do that on every unit, but if you could do something more like that, I think that would give it that more community.
I think on this particular design here, what we have is, since we can't get every front porch to face every other front porch, we've done it where you can have a front porch face, maybe one or two, or, so, and that's kind of what we were trying to accomplish. In other words, so that particular porch that you're referring to, it actually, where it wraps around, it actually looks over to the front porch on the existing house there.
Exactly.
But, and then we have, the back porch in the back corner, that is kind of an isolated area. But if you go over to the would be the east, or excuse me, they'd be the west side, the southwest side, those two porches actually face each other. Even in a 6-foot fence, and we have a 30-inch roughly high elevation for the raised floor, you're actually see over the fence. So I mean, I see what you're saying, but it's just, by having it up and raised foundation, it actually does give you more of a, it's not sunk down and under fences and stuff. It's actually up and above the fencing and stuff. And if we keep the landscape down nice with just trees and,
But I think you could take that, oh, sorry, go ahead. The existing residence, you could actually take that front porch and wrap it around towards the east if you wanted to give it some separation from that common area. So that was the point that Kathleen Wold had brought up. If you look at the existing residence and the front entry porch looks like, you know, the common area as part of that parcel, you could actually
You could, yeah,
give it a little more separation by wrapping it towards the interlocking paver or drive area,
so he's just
for example.
Down to here, and then this common gets bigger there. And you don't have your yard, now it's parking, and then do what she's saying, do that.
yeah. Yeah, that's a possibility for sure.
The other question I have is back on the garages. Are you going to require on your CCNRs for people to park in their garage? Because I don't see, if there's guest areas, that they're going to have to do that. There's no off-street parking. They're going to have to park in their garage, correct?
Well, in the undeveloped area right now, we will have the use to provide some maybe interim parking until that street gets put through, and we are going to actually landscape that area, that undeveloped area, and work with the city on that. And so that actually is an area that we had hoped to, you know, provide some additional parking in the interim until that street actually gets put through, which could be anywhere.
It seems like it's a tight enough space, though, that nobody's going to be able to park in front of their garage.
Well, you're not going to be able to park in front of the garage, and as far as having that in the CCNRs, I'm sure that will be addressed. I mean, it's a good point.
And then the guest parking, is that going to remain guest parking, or is that going to be the places where people park?
Well, yeah, you know, I think we'll put some CCNR rules in place, and how they
really
follow them,
neat
they'll be the
signs.
boss of themselves, basically, so.
Sure.
You know, who knows how they'll eventually use it, you know, and.
So there is opportunity for off-street parking then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. That's our feedback. This is a concept review, so.
Yes,
I mean,
that's perfect.
I appreciate you guys going through all these concept reviews.
So our next move would be that we would interact with Jensen, the civil engineer, and then have the overlay done on top of this to show and delineate what we were talking about as far as the parcels, the individual parcels, and the common area. And then also in that same time frame, we'll be addressing the different maybe things will come up at that time for rules like no parking outside your garage, park in your garage, things like that. I'm sure that's when that will become, it will be addressed.
And because it's still under review, Craig, I'm thinking you're going to kind of still keep it somewhat schematic, right? Keep it, not a formal tentative map.
Well, that's our next move.
You want to take it all the way? I guess it's just a matter of how confident you are that we're going to buy into it.
Well, that's why we're here before we step into that. If this is something that.
And what I'm saying is we don't know until we see it, what that.
Well, when you do the tentative map, we can bring that, once he gets it, we can bring that and maybe distribute it to everybody. I don't know if you have to go through an actual meeting, or if everybody could have their feedback.
So is Jensen Engineering telling you they can't do a conceptual tentative map for you? They need to do a full-blown tentative map, is that what they're telling you?
Well, that was what that was gonna be our next step, is to go for a full-blown tentative map, but there'll be somewhere in that time frame, there'll be a conceptual one that they'll go over with us, and then we could distribute it out with you before we actually take it.
I think that's what the commissioners are asking for.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's a good step. I think that the tentative map is an integral part of how they see this project. And if that makes the whole process run a little smoother, then I would ask Jensen, I'd be happy to meet with you and them, and we could talk about what the exhibits would be and we could bring it back. Is that what you would like, them to bring it back with a little bit more? I think you're right. I think that how it functions, where the property lines lay on this, has a lot to do with the kind of conditions that, and again, you have to think always, like the guest parking that they were talking about, when it lands into someone's property, people really feel ownership of things that land in the property. So without knowing if the parcel lines kind of go around and this guest parking ends up in the common parcel, we can't really give you feedback, and we wouldn't want, am I saying this
Yes,
correctly?
exactly.
And so we wouldn't want to then have you do a full-blown tentative map and say, well, you should have put the parking in the common area.
Well, I think that our plan is, at this point, is to have the parking in the common area.
Right,
That's
so
going to
I'll-
be delineated in
Yeah.
that second parcel, just that.
So I think that a tentative map or conceptual tentative map.
Yeah,
And I'd be happy to meet with you and we could go over with, because I just want to keep the costs down for you until it's a little bit more gelled. And I think that's what they're asking for.
Sure.
And we'd be happy to bring this back.
I would hate to see him spend a lot of money on something that's pretty finalized.
Finalized, yes.
And then we say, whoops, and
Yeah.
then you gotta go back, it's gonna cost you more, so.
Would that need to be presented into another conceptual review meeting, or can we?
We could do a continuation.
Yeah, we're kind of doing it. I mean, this is a discussion item, but, I mean, like as in another fee? No, we're not going to charge you another fee.
I'm not worried about that. I'm just
okay.
saying, is that, if we get this, then we put it back on and we come for another
I think
kind of an
that's
open forum?
I think that's what
more
they're
like- okay.
asking for, yeah. I think they're
Sure.
just trying to help you kind of fine tune your project. And so, and since you're really willing and receptive to this kind of dialogue,
Yeah.
I see no harm to it.
Yeah, we just don't want to, we just want to kind of go and not squander any unnecessary
We
money.
understand that, yeah.
So that's the main thing, if we can just take, even if we have to take some small steps to kind of,
Well, it sounds like you've got
Yeah.
cooperation on their end, so.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah, we might, because we don't actually notice these concept reviews to any of the neighbors. So that might be a good time to
Get some feedback.
get the neighbors
Let's do
involved.
that. Let's do that. We'll meet, talk about your tentative map and get it all together and then notice it and then, yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great.
I got a couple few design things. One thing I saw, I really like the outlookers on the building, but just coming from my background as a builder and whatnot, I find those things really rot. So I don't know if you're capping them or what, but you might want to.
Yeah, we
Okay,
cap
I mean-
all those either
Right.
with the galvanized painted or a copper,
Okay.
probably not copper in this case, but it'd probably galvanized.
And then I'm wondering, how come you don't have a door from the bedroom out onto the porches?
On which,
Or, I mean, you don't
on
really
one of the
have to-
6 units or
Yeah,
or
I just
the
see
main
them-
unit?
I just see like down here, it's not really something you have to answer, but I don't see any bedroom access from the porch to the bed, which
There's more
I would want
bedrooms.
if I was living there. So,
Yeah, once again,
yeah, I don't know, I'd just like to, I don't know, if you want to.
it's kind of comes to the point where you have the balance again, that whether you want, they're small units. So do you want wall space?
Right.
Or when you give up, sliding glass doors or even a 3.0 swing door?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but it may not just, it's just a kind of a balance of whether you feel that it would be better to have wall space for furniture, or, because you do lose that, but we could look at that and see if we can,
It's just, and then the last thing I'd just like to put in your mind, or I don't know if you've thought about it, and I saw it kind of, Commissioner Nolan's comments from the first time you're here, about, looking at any specific sustainability measures beyond our current Title 24 requirements. Have you thought of, like, for LEED certification or Energy Pro or anything like that for such developments?
we, at one time, the permeable pavers is one of the comments that was on the last meeting that we had, so we kind of integrated that. We're investigating the idea of possible solar on them, and how many panels and the costs and whatnot. So We haven't really made any firm decision on it or anything, but that's something that we're considering. Yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Great.
Actually, one
Oh,
just one
all right.
quick last question. I noticed that along the trail, you've got a 6-foot high fence, and I understand, wanting that separation from the trail, but in your process, did it ever come up or occur to another approach? And I realize that the units are fairly close to the trail, but sometimes I wonder, would somebody want more access to the trail rather than having to go through a 6-foot gate to get to it?
Well, that was something that was brought up in one of our previous meetings and stuff, and I think once again the balance of that is who walks down the bike trails and stuff during the day when it's a nice evening or daytime is a lot different crowd that walks down there at 10 and 11 and 12 and 1 in the morning. So considering that, I think it's becomes more of a safety, more private. But we do want to have access to that because we do feel that those people are going to be using that bike trail a lot. Walking down to West Ridge, going to the, if they're younger startup couples, going to Will Tennis Academy, so. But it was really thought out about trying to do that. We were wanting to maybe go with like a low 36-inch wall, but then, then it's sitting on, I don't know what you think about that, but.
Well, I wanted to say thank you for the fact that you thought about it, because I'm not even sure, what the answer is. And I have thought about it too, but it's, something to definitely consider. But I appreciate the effort that you put into thinking about it.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I really
All right.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Doing this. All right, we're going to move on to our director's report.
Okay, so you'll see that on the director's decisions that were done, we have a tree permit. We're starting to get our temporary use permits in for Christmas tree sales. I think the one that's the most important one is director's exemption to repaint the building and landscape at 730 East Ojai. And I only bring that to your attention because, there's been so much talk about director's exemption. I just want to bring that up, that's typical of the kind of exemptions that I've been doing since I've been here, which is, and I think everyone drives by and sees that building being painted. Just for, no reason to bring something like that before the commission when it's just repaint and re-landscaping. That type of thing is what I've been doing, so I bring that just to your attention for that. Moving on to the active code enforcement, you can see that we still have, well, it's pretty much down to a page and like 5 lines on the other side. But we are taking a lot of the older ones off the list. And I can report back that the third one down, which is Code Enforcement 1341, has been cleared up, and that was one of our older ones. So, so that one's done now. So I don't know if you have any comments or questions about any of the code enforcement.
I've got a question on Robin Court.
Oh yes, ma'am.
That house is really.
It's in receivership now.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Isn't that what's called, receivership? Yes, I'm sorry. It didn't sound right when I said it, but yes, that's all I can really tell you. I mean, so city's kind of out of it at this point, but yes, that's where it is.
How's that? Who takes care of the cost of that then?
Okay, so without talking specifically about this one in a general dialogue, when a property goes into receivership, they give the homeowner legal notice that they need to do whatever they need to do. And if they don't respond or don't do it, then at some point, if there's, I'm not a lawyer, but if there's enough substantiation that the person is incapable for whatever reason for doing that, then it goes into this receivership, and that person fixes it up, and then it's offered back, or, however, maybe somebody facilitates that person getting some type of loan in some cases, sometimes not. And if they can't, then it's sold, and whatever the difference is between what it costs to fix up and what they sell it for, then that would go to the person who was the previous owner. That's my understanding of it. And so it's used in extreme cases where people aren't either able to do the work necessary to bring their home up to standards. Mm-hmm. So, and then I know everyone has been talking lots and lots and lots about North Signal Street. I can't say that, but we are moving forward with that. And I met again today, not talking about the code enforcement case, but just generally speaking, what's going on there, not the issues they have on this code enforcement. Met with the contractor and his architect today, and we're hoping that they're going to come before you with not only a design review but a concept review, and they're anxious to get going with that. So we're working diligently on getting all their studies and things they need to get done to move that forward, and lots of dialogue on it. So hopefully that will make you'll have some lively meetings with a lot of neighbors here.
I was surprised we didn't have another presentation at this meeting.
With that said, let's move on to the future agenda items. And so, as you all know, today was Heather Waldstein's last day, and so we are busy and happen to be very busy for winter, I think. And then without my part-time planner, so hopefully you guys will go easy on me and until I'm trying to get some consultants in to help me with the work. But we will have going November 19th, the 205 North Single Street, which I know everybody realizes was a restaurant, a pre-existing restaurant. They want to come back in as a restaurant. But unfortunately, because of the lapse in time, our code, the CUP actually expires when you have a lapse like that. So we're bringing it back in for outdoor dining and design review. There's some things that they're doing. And I'm not really familiar with what they're doing with Oak Street, but I will be by the time I get that off over to you. Unless Sherry knows exactly what they're doing there.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
Oh, you've seen it before? Okay, good.
At least some of us have.
And then the second dwelling program, that went well the other day with the Building Appeals Board. They really didn't, I did a checklist for them for building standards and an affidavit and some other issues like that, put it together. I think it's all getting kind of where it's going to get wrapped up. And so my question with that is, there's some thought that they wanted a joint meeting with you regarding that before you actually formalize it and send it up to City Council. And I needed some feedback on how you felt. Do you feel like you want me just to bring what they've done so far to you, or do you want to collaboratively work with them? And I just need to know, again, to schedule the joint meeting. As you probably know, one of their board members will be moving on, so there will be some transition there.
I think we'd be fine just seeing whatever they've come up with, and then we can give them feedback. I don't know. Yeah.
Is that how we all feel? Just not a joint meeting, just bring it back? Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Can I say one thing about that?
You may.
Do we have somebody from there?
Yeah, they could
to be
present
here?
it to us.
Okay. I'll talk to Chair Wyrick about that. And I know that this has been going on for a really long time, so I am trying to move it forward and get it to completion. So then I guess then we can move on to the next thing, which is the honest, ordinance. I will say that that there are going to be some other things I'm going to need to do once we get this compliance program done, which is do some handouts and that type of thing. The pretty, colorful handouts that get people kind of interested and help, kind of do like a flow process, but I haven't wanted to work on those until we get actually the wording down that you wanted. So with that, I just, there's other things that we have here moving forward. We have a lot of people who are very interested in moving forward quickly, and we're trying to accommodate them, so we're putting them on the schedule, but some may or may not have to fall off depending on what staffing we have. I would like to also just indicate that we have met a couple of times now with Ojai Valley Inn, and they're doing a very important remodel, and it's on a very short time frame. And I think some of the issues that they're coming forward with that I will be able to do a director's exemption for, because they're really minor in the facade changes they want to, and of course they're like, maybe I'm just being redundant or however you want to say it, but of course, when they're closed or they're not, it has to be a short period of time. So it's very important to turn it over really quickly. And so I don't think anything will have to come before the Planning Commission, but if there is something, I've indicated to them that, they get into the older part of the building, there may be issues where they have to come before you. So this list here is subject to change depending on, the urgency of getting them before the Planning Commission if need be. They have very critical timeframes. And so also the Wheeled Tennis Academy also is one that also has some pretty critical timeframes. We're trying to accommodate everybody, and for whatever reason, everyone's, lining up at the same time. So while we present this, it is kind of subject to change, and we are pushing people through as need be. Okay, and I think that's it, unless you have questions of me?
Next week's Tuesday meeting didn't get on here because I didn't know about it.
That's right. And by the way, there is a joint meeting on Tuesday with City Council and the Planning Commission, which you'll hear a presentation from David Sargent. He is the principal of Sargent Town, or president maybe, Sargent Town Planning. He was the planning consultant chosen by the interview panel to actually become the city's consultant for the neighborhood planning. But there was some thought that he needed to give another presentation and be open to questions and concerns that the Planning Commission or the public or the City Council may have, and how he's going to process actually facilitate the neighborhood planning process. And I think that we all know that that was kind of left open and flexible and fluid because we really didn't know the best way. We wanted to utilize the consultants to kind of give us feedback on the best way. And by doing that, it kind of also makes people wonder, well, why this way and not that way? So I think it will be very beneficial for you to come Tuesday with questions and make sure that that he is actually the one that's going to be able. I know Steve and I sat on the interview panels, and so we were able to do that, ask questions and listen to his presentation, and that's why we felt comfortable recommending him, but so that you'll go through that same process that we went through. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them about that. So, but with that, I guess you guys are set. You have your binders for that meeting.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Our City Council liaison, and also Ojai property owner.
Good evening again, everyone. Thanks again for your hard work. A couple of things. Given the election results yesterday, we're going to have an opening on the Park and Recreations Commission that'll need to be filled. We're also going to have an opening on the Building Appeals Board. So for the benefit of the public that may be hearing this, get your applications in because we're going to be trying to fill those two positions as quickly as we can. As far as the meeting on Tuesday, this particular consultant came before the City Council as an agenda item for us to approve the expense. And rather than us approving the expense, we said we thought we ought to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to find out exactly what this particular consultant was going to be doing. Because it seemed to us, at least in the initial presentation package, that it looked like it was very urban to us. It didn't look like it was really Ojai. It was more of an urbanization package. So I think it's going to be very beneficial for us to have the joint meeting and give the consultant some directions. And then I think it has to come back before the council for approval of the expenditure. So we're going to be very interested to get the information. The other thing is we did approve the hiring of a code enforcement officer at our last meeting, which is going to go a long way to having us actually policing code violations rather than having to have them neighbor report them. And I think we approved it for 30 hours a week, was it? Yeah, 30 hours a week. And that person is actually going to be out on weekends and at times when he may be able to find people that are doing construction on the weekend or whatever the case might be, as well as actually seeking out code violations that we can then begin trying to enforce. I think it's probably a pretty good idea, although it's like anything else. Governmental intrusion into our lives I don't really like, but I don't know what else you can do. I don't think it's fair for the neighbors to have to police their neighborhood either. So any questions? Happy to have the election over. Another 4 years. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. It was myself and Randy Haney and Bill Wyrick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any
Paul got the
questions?
most votes, so I think we're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
And with that, our meeting is concluded.